Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste and welcome to this edition of Weekly Dialogues under Jaipur Dialogues. And today we have a very special guest right from Pennsylvania in the United States. And I introduce you to Vijayalakshmi. She is actually a graduate from Wharton Business Schools, and the speciality, I think in these days it's a rare speciality, is that she's raised her two children, boys, through homeschooling. And because of that, she has a great insight into what the education policy should be like. And we have her here to discuss the new education policy 2020. Welcome, Vijayalakshmi ji.
Thank you so much, Sri Dixit. Lovely to be here with you and share some of my experiences raising two boys. I also, because of that, I run Agastya Gurukulam with some friends of mine, trying to replicate some of those learnings that we had. And we can talk more about it. But
Yes, surely. And additionally, I would also like to tell you that she also funds this new great exciting portal that has come up in the United States, creately.in, and it's making waves, of course, and she is there at the back of it. So let's discuss the education policy. I have certain ideas. I think there's certain good things about it, and we've already had 3 talks on it. One was a solo by me. The other one I had a discussion with Mohandas Pai ji, and I also had a discussion with Sankrant. Mm-hmm. So Sankrant was mainly focused on the language issue, and with Mohandas Pai ji, we had discussion mostly on the higher education, with a focus, of course, a little bit on the school education as well. Now, one of the points that I raised with Mohandas Pai ji was exactly about homeschooling. I said that, okay, there is no provision for homeschooling, to which he said that there is no bar either. How do you look at this homeschooling, the real plurality or the real diversity of education that was always the hallmark of the Indian tradition? I thought was not reflected in this new education policy, whereas he said that anybody who wants to make good of it can certainly do it. There is no bar. How do you look at it?
So the new education policy, Sri Dixit, has something for everybody. It's got a lot of buzzwords. So if you look at it, it has words like fun. It has words like multidisciplinary a gazillion times, I think over 70 times, and it has liberal arts involved. So it has all these Western university buzzwords, right? For a lack of anything else, but with very little depth. So as far as homeschool, so specifically as far as homeschooling, it isn't mentioned. The homeschool groups in India, I actually, right now I'm in the US, but I was in India for the past 10, 12 years raising my kids there. And one of the things that I looked into was the NIO system, to see if I could put my kids there and then get them to college. Unfortunately, the NIO system is quite fluid. There is a lot of there's no clarity with that system, where to go. There's everybody trying to make money. The standards, I'm not so sure that Indian universities also look at them favorably versus an ICSE. Also, they lack prestige as well. It's almost looked upon as a system for losers, quote unquote, or for people who are not taking academics seriously, like for athletes and people who just want to graduate through high school and get into through the sports quota into college. And so there's a lot of and then rules can change willy-nilly, and it's not something that you want to take you want to be the pioneers in this, because your kids could get affected badly. So the thing is, the homeschooling group is always fumbling, and I think the new education policy has just kind of left it alone. So they haven't really done much in terms of, but like Shri Pai says, they haven't said anything against it either. So that's where I will leave. So it's each two.
Okay. Yes, but you raised your children very successfully. One is in Stanford and the other is in Georgia program. So you must have done something, right? So could you tell our people as to what it takes for parents to really do successful homeschooling and keep your kids rooted in the Indian traditions, keep them rooted in the Indianness, and yet they can make it to the great education systems, to great schools?
So when I started homeschooling, I realized, I met my guru, Sri Dayananda Saraswati Swamiji, some 14-15 years ago, and I was so struck. I was a very successful, Western educated person. I went to all the Ivy Leagues. I had 2 masters. I was working in Wall Street. I was doing all of that. But then I realized that I didn't know anything about my roots or where I came from. And then I had children. And then I just realized how depleted I personally was. So I didn't want my children to have the same experience, and I wanted to change the cultural clock back. And it wasn't very much because I knew nothing, right? So any little bit. So if they could read Devanagari, great deal, So that's how much, how depleted I was. So I started learning Sanskrit myself and teaching. And I took part in Samskrita Bharati's, camps and the programs and the exams. And it's a great place to start. Yeah, because Samskrita Bharati makes things easy. In fact, the new education policy should give the whole pedagogy of teaching Sanskrit to Samskrita Bharati. It's an organization that actually needs a Bharat Ratna, in my opinion, because it has brought Sanskritam to the ordinary person. Yeah. So, and essentially, the more you get into Sanskrit, you realize Indian knowledge systems have been mined by everybody else, and Indians today have a fantastic way, a knack, in fact, of rejecting what is fantastic about our system and bringing in what is the worst of the Western system. And for example, this liberal arts and all of this, right, is part of the Western system, which is actually not functional here. Yeah. And we can talk at length about foreign universities wanting to come into India. And, we have to understand, before we let in foreign universities come in, we have to ask, what for are we letting them in? Yeah. And so I followed a very classical method for homeschooling. So homeschooling also, you have unschooling, you have all kinds of methodologies for homeschoolers. And the classical method is based on the Greek system in the West, and which actually came from the Vedic system. The Greeks adopted a lot of Vedic pedagogy as well, not just the sciences, but also the pedagogy. So what the classical system in the West does is they divide elementary, middle, and high into 3 phases. The elementary, so it's not about, the new education policy has things like, fun and discovery and no rote learning. Rote learning has got such a bad name, and it has a very important role, we forget. So the young elementary, so here in the West, they call it the grammar phase, the elementary years, where the kids don't have logic, but they're like a sponge. They can absorb anything. It just, we all remember. In fact, the songs we remember, the kahavats, the subhashitams that we remember are things that we learned in early childhood. We did not know the meaning of those, but those Vishnu Sahasranamam, if you learned in your early childhood, you can chant. Whereas at 40, if you do it, you will not be able to remember. So we have to see who's the patram for this, So the early childhood, it should be about rote learning. What we give for rote learning is a different matter. But early elementary education, you cannot say, okay, go out and write a haiku poem, because they don't know anything. They haven't read a million poems to find out what's a good poem. They haven't lived life enough to get the rasa of what it is to live, right? So early education is indeed about rote learning. So the grammar phase is about learning things by heart, shlokas, poetry. So in Agastya Gurukulam, what we do is we teach Ashtadhyayi, which is Panini's Sutra Pathas. We teach them that by heart, and we teach Amarakosha. In fact, Jagan Mata and Jagat Pita is like the Ashtadhyayi and the Amarakosha are the foundation pillars. And if you don't learn it in the early years, you can never learn it. You and I at this age will not be able to commit to memory. So that, and then we go through the logic phase. The middle school years are the logic phase, where you're learning logic, how things work, what is causation, things like that. And then you have the rhetoric phase in high school, where you can do analysis, you can do argumentation, you can do all of that. And so when you're arguing and all of that, all these things that you learn in the grammar phase, you can pull out of memory and make a fantastic argument or a case or analysis on whatever it is that you're presented with. So this, this is something that we, that our traditional system does, and the traditional system, the classical education in the West also, does. So my homeschooling was based on that, where early years they learned a lot of Sanskrit, a lot of things committed to memory, Ashtadhyayi, Amarakosha, things like that. And then Sanskrit Sambhashanam. So that Sanskritam is not some dead language, it is alive. It is something that we communicate. In fact, at Infinity Foundation, we're doing something called Sanskrit non-translatables, because there are words that are not translatable. And that goes back to Sankrant's work on Bhasha.
Yes.
That where you learn, because there are some things that not only do you learn better, but also it's an ecosystem. So when I say the word karma, it's an ecosystem of ideas that goes with it. It's just not action. Karma has a karma phala, it has punya and papa, it has punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, it has dharma on the other side. So all these ideas come into this, are encapsulated into this word. So you can't, it's a non-translatable essentially. And we're doing that in Infinity Foundation. We're launching a book and then going to do a whole series of conferences on this. So essentially, Sanskrit should be a must. And another thing I'll tell you about Sanskrit, why it's so important. So my older one took a gap year after he got admission into Stanford, and he went to Chhattisgarh. He has no idea about Hindi. Yeah, he has no exposure. We are a no television house, so it's something like we don't even happen to stumble upon a Bollywood movie or something in Hindi. Yeah, so it's absolutely foreign to him. And he went to Chhattisgarh, and within 3 months he was cracking jokes in Hindi because of his Sanskrit background. So you want national integration and all of that. We put in Sanskrit as almost mandatory because it has nothing to do with religion. It's a foundational language. It connects us. It is what that can. If we want to be united as a nation, Sanskrit connects us. And so within 3 months, he was able to communicate in Hindi fluently. And that's the beauty. And it's not like he's brilliant. It's just it's a brilliance of Sanskrit. So that is that. And then there is Ganita Shastra. So in Agastya, we teach them Ashtadhyayi, Amarakosha, Sambhashana, Sanskritam. We also teach mathematics by the Indian method. And this is, Ganita is different from Vedic mathematics. Vedic mathematics is something new.
It is new. Absolutely, it is new.
Whereas Ganita Shastra is very, very old. And we follow the book Leelavati by Bhaskara. And we teach, so there are different approaches. So there's a rasa in mathematics. Today's Western mathematics is very dry for people who are into literature and the arts, right? They find mathematics sometimes too boring. Whereas Indian Ganita is in beautiful verse and it has immediate application. It's all application oriented in real life, and it's in fantastic meters. So at various levels, right? So there is an actual application that you're going to use the math for. Then it's a beautiful meter that you can actually, it's poetry. So you have that aspect of it. So it's so multifaceted, right? And there are many methods of solving the same problem. There are 3-4 methods for square root, finding the square root of something, not just one method like in the Western system. So this actually gives children a very so in the new education policy, again you have the word of multidisciplinary, and we need the arts, and having the arts is nothing new to us. We had arts in in mathematics. We had music, art, and poetry and rhythm in mathematics. I mean, that's sort of the culture we are from.
Wonderful. That's wonderfully explained as well. And how does Agastya Gurukulam work? Otherwise, is it exactly like a Gurukulam where the children have to leave their family and stay there?
No. This is an online Gurukulam, because there were many people who asked me, how did your kids get to where they got to? And I basically want people to be bold and take things into their own hands, because education is something that parents, if they can afford it in terms of time and resources, they should take the plunge and do it. Yeah. and not just put them into a school system and hope for the for the government to Swadharma has always been our big thing as well. And so we should try and do something. And so many people who don't have the guts, a few of my friends and I started this. It's an online Gurukulam where we teach all the hard work of teaching kids Ratanam and Kantastikaranam, all these things, learning by heart, and teaching them Aksharam, all these things we teach them. And then we teach Leelavati for mathematics. And it shows them the different approaches to solving basic, simple mathematics, algebra, arithmetic. And then you can, then I don't have to keep on crowing that Indian mathematics is great or whatever, right? I tell you 5 methods to solve something and juxtapose it to one method in the Western system. And these 5 methods are all embedded in beautiful poetry, and you can chant them, and it's concise, and there are little tricks and little puzzles inside, In fact, Bhaskara was the first helicopter parent. He wrote this entire Leelavati for his daughter. So, so the idea of teaching your girl child, and writing an entire work to teach this one child. And everywhere he'll say, Bale Leelavati, beautifully he will address her. And he teaches his girl child. What more motivation do we need? So the new education policy just leaves out all our Indic knowledge systems. And the West has always been mining our Indian knowledge systems. We haven't, we are trying to bring liberal arts into India.
That was something that I also found quite odd. Why do you need to bring these liberal arts, which there's hardly anything liberal about it? Because most of the Western system is actually rooted in their own binaries, the binaries of their religion, the binaries of their biases. Everything is in a binary. This is right and this is wrong. There is no midway. Right. There is no gray between the white and the black. Whereas the whole Indian system is about grays, and the absolute is a journey.
Yeah, Bhartruhari in his Niti Shatakam says, Sahitya Sangeeta Kala Vihinaha Sakshat Pashu Pucha, Vishana Hinaha. Without Kala and Sahitya and Sangeeta, you're like an animal. Yeah, and this idea of interdisciplinary and all is nothing new to us. Yeah. Now liberal arts. Let's talk liberal arts. Now liberal arts you can have 4 things in liberal arts. Yeah. So when you go to a typical liberal arts college like Harvard or whatever, and you think of a liberal arts education, there are 4 parts. One is mathematics, comes in liberal arts. Then is natural sciences, which is also part of liberal arts. Yeah. We don't need mathematics and natural sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, because we have them already in India right now. Yeah, we don't need them. Then the third quadrant is essentially humanities, and the fourth is the social sciences. Now, the third quadrant of humanities has literature and journalism and things like that, which is very different for us, given our literature is very different, our worldview, our drishti is very different. So even the third quadrant, we don't really need, because our humanities is very cultural driven, and that's different. Our literature is different. The fourth quadrant of social sciences, and that is very interesting. You have an entire, people do not know, there's a whole area of something called grievance studies. Yeah. So you have, I don't know, Sanjay, but whether you've heard about fact studies, queer studies. Then there is all kinds of grievances, right? Social grievances that you can have.
The atrocity literature?
Pardon?
The atrocity literature comes out of that?
Atrocity literature will come out of that. And these are all specific grievances. So this whole idea of victimhood, always fighting for, rights. So what India essentially is doing by inviting liberal arts curriculum, they're getting the social sciences, because the other 3 we already have. Math and natural sciences we have, and humanities is very culturally oriented. We have our own literature and we have our own pundits. We don't need that from abroad. Now, what we're getting in is this social justice warriors. You'll have, they train people from the start. English literature in these humanities, in the social sciences department is all about, how do you make a poster? How do you talk about environmentalism? It's nothing about actual literature. Yeah. So now all these days we had kids going abroad. Yeah. Wealthy families from Latins, Delhi going, spending all that. Some of them fortunately stayed abroad. Others unfortunately returned back to Delhi and then rioted and asked for rights and are these social justice warriors, right? Now we have foreign universities coming in and actually creating our own instead of doing that. And not only that, we want to spoil our IITs as well with all this.
Yes, but that is something that even I have an objection with. Of course, it is justified by saying that you have this system of majors and minors, but then I don't think it really makes any sense in the IITs at all. And we have seen the impact in IIT Madras.
Right.
You've seen what IIT Madras has been reduced to.
Correct.
And they want all the IITs to become like that.
And not only that, now let's look at even wonderful Western universities. We want them to come in. Now, if you look at the statistics, Sanjay, not many people know this. Yeah, so you look at a great school like so-called great school like Harvard or MIT. Yeah, if you look at their undergraduation statistics, leave graduate school. When I say graduate school, I mean masters and PhD. Undergraduate is the bachelor's. If you look at the bachelor's numbers, right, you have 10% kids from international kids all over the world. 10% of the entire undergraduate body makes up international. The rest are all American. And within American, they use something called a holistic approach to admissions. And they will say it is merit-based. Now, to the standard person like you, when I tell you it's merit-based, you say, oh, great, merit. Merit has an adjective. It's called academic merit and non-academic merit. So the non-academic merit is if you have done any social justice warrior type things, you fall into any of these oppressed categories, all these, it's very hard to get an admission in, and Asians are being discriminated against in undergraduate. NRI Indians and other Asians like the Chinese are actually, there are lawsuits. Even last 2 weeks ago, Wall Street Journal came up with something in Yale University. There's been a case going on in Harvard about discrimination of Asians in undergraduate admissions. Yeah, because they just say everybody is the same. You guys lack personality. We are tired of STEM. All of them good in math and science, and we really want different kids. And the people who make these decisions of admission are themselves Ivy League graduates who in these humanities departments who really couldn't go out and get themselves a decent job, right? They come back and become admissions officers. So they propagate this thing. Now you look at but how do they maintain ranking, right? You can't just get a bunch of kids who are really not academically well prepared and get the name that these reputation that these institutions have. So what they do is very, very clever. So graduate students, when you look at the statistics, 80 to 90% of graduate students are international. Okay, only 10 to 15% are homegrown American kids. So these guys don't do a good job of actually training American kids. The undergraduate kids are legacy, all these people, who are wealthy or who have some other social justice reason why they're in. They pay the fees. So the undergraduates, it's a business. Let's not understand. It's not like how in India you have Annadanam and Vidyadanam and these sort of lofty ideals. These guys are a business. So you let them in, right? They are going to make money, right? They don't care about India or educating Indians. That's not their goal. Our education, MHRD is really stupid to think that, right? And our business folks also are stupid to think that, because nobody, it's a business. And what is worse is if you're a business, at least you can say, hey, you'd be forthright and say, yeah, I'm a business and I want to make money. These guys they talk about leadership and visionary, and we're making tomorrow's leaders, all of that. And the entire thing is like a crony system. So the undergraduates, they pay money and they pay for the infrastructure. The graduate school is cheap labor for the professors and research. So they come all over the world, Eastern Europe, Russia, India, China. 90%, you can look at this, Harvard, MIT, all of them, right? 90% are from overseas. And only 10 or 15% is from America. And that's where they get their ratings for research. So when they come, they're giving you a junk. They're not even doing a good job here, let alone coming to India and educating, Indian kids. They're not going to do it. And when recently Trump said that he's going to stop visas for university grad students, and all the universities are up in arms because they will just collapse because they can't maintain their rating. They don't have foreign students. Somebody else, they poach. So America essentially poaches. Somebody else does the prep work and they poach. It's like us. IIT, we train all these young people. They and then when they're ready to be plucked, America poaches them, right? And now Trump has said no visa. And we need to think as India, how do we keep IIT graduates back in India to help the nation? In fact, we should have, after 12th, we should do one thing that's not in the education policy. It should be 1 year of either civil service or military service, because that will teach people to give 1 year of prime time life to the country. And you will learn a lot also. Like Singapore has it. So we can learn, we can take good things from abroad. Germany has a civil service or military service. India doesn't. So they take all the rubbish from everywhere, but leave out all the good stuff. And our own good stuff, we just don't even bother. I mean, it's unfortunate. One feels like literally crying, when this happens. So that's the state of liberal arts. And so you end up producing activists, always asking for rights, who are not contributors to society. Right? Always with the placard there, going, asking for rights here, rights there, zero responsibility, all living cushy lives, environmental rights, this rights, that rights. And, and our entire Shastra is about responsibility.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. We are a duty-based society.
We're a duty-based society, and rights will automatically come.
All the rights are actually adjuncts to duties. This is what I have written in my books. The rights in the Indian system are provided as adjunct to duties to enable you to perform your duties.
Correct.
That is what is dharma is.
Right,
Dharma is the code of duties.
Even subjects like economics, right? People in the West economists, although they've had Nobel prizes and things like that, and Shri Gurumurthy is also written about it. Vaidyanathan is also there. I don't know how much economists have really contributed.
Like Talib says, no skin in the game.
Exactly. And, whether it's a science or a pseudoscience, it's a toss-up. Right? And and whether those Western economic models fit ours. I mean, that's Gurumurthy's whole idea of, and by Dr. Vaidyanathan also, right? They talk about this extensively, doing research on community-based microfinancing, and they've done all these sorts of work, because how business works, like a Marwadi house that does business can never can fit into any economic model, because we traditionally are different. So liberal arts, has economics as well.
Liberal arts, I think it's a different form of the mental slavery, and the one ground on which it is being justified is that we don't have the quantities, and these people will bring quantities. But I can quite clearly see from your exposition that it has many pitfalls. In fact, it seems to have more pitfalls than it will have any substantial impact, or it will bridge any gaps. More than bridging gaps, I think it will probably widen gaps. That is one thing. And there's also this thing that there is great quality in the 50 top US universities. That is one starry-eyed idea that most people in India have. So what do you say about that?
So, like I said, the top 50 universities are great because of the graduate programs. You strip the top 50 universities of their graduate programs and just leave them as undergraduates. The top 50 universities are great because America attracts the best talent from around the world. Somebody's done the hard job and America plucks them away. That's why they are great. They take all the IITians, they do all of that. And like that, they go to China, and they go to Russia, they go to Eastern Europe, and they pluck all these people. And that's why they have so many patents and cutting edge research. It's not because of the undergrad program. If Trump stops the visas for the graduate school, the foreign students, the entire thing will collapse, because right now the undergrad is a money maker. And I'm sure there is, you should see the endowment. Harvard has a 40 billion with a B endowment. Yale has a $30 billion endowment. So they will just put like 10 million in India and again make money from the Indian rich. Because here they're collapsing, essentially with Corona especially. Now all the universities are shut down. Undergrads are not able to come. Now undergrad parents are thinking, I'm keeping my child in the house and I'm paying $75,000 a year, $60,000 to $75,000 a year for this, for online classes. And so it's a huge, I mean, the emperor with no clothes it's being revealed. So it's the top 50 universities are great only because of the graduate program. Academically, see, ultimately the proof of the pudding is not in the tennis court or the squash courts, right? You have to produce research, cutting edge research, and 80 to 90% of STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics research, is essentially by graduate students who are from overseas.
Quite right. And there is also this great fascination about having great campus life, but with the online thing gaining ground during Corona and people suddenly realizing the great merits of online education. And I think campuses seem to be becoming redundant. And at such time, the national education policy trying to attract campuses in India, I think it's
a shame.
rather paradoxical.
And then also it's glaringly absent. This online education is the hybrid kind of education is glaringly absent. Khan Academy is now educating so many millions free, right, on YouTube. We have so many more, so where we cannot reach students, right? We have to use online, and it has something like 6th standard kids need to start computer programming. And I'll tell you this one more thing. So in the education policy, and I'm giving you this example to see how well thought through it is. Yeah. So they say from 6th standard onwards, we should teach children programming. And you cannot be more wrong, because, and I'll again give the example of my son in Stanford. We've never had a television in the house. He's never done any sort of programming. Okay. But he's done exceptional amount of math. Yeah. Really hardcore, fantastic math, both in the Indian and the Western system. Right? Now he's in Stanford studying computer science at the highest level, even within his class. He's taking the most challenging courses and he's doing exceedingly well. Yeah. So you don't need to, and to add to that, Google announced a couple of months ago.
Yes, that great disruption.
Yeah. $49 a month for 6 months. They will teach you computer programming and get you a job as well. $49 a month for 6 months. Now, Sridhar Vembu of Zoho, he's another, really different thinking person. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has this entire bootstrapped company, Zoho, which is a huge company, and he has it in Tenkasi in Tamil Nadu, and he actually takes children that are high school pass or whatever, 10th standard, whom he thinks have the aptitude. He trains them in Zoho, something called Zoho University. So in the West, these universities are becoming obsolete because they're not training the kids for anything of value. What Google can do in 6 months with $49, right? These guys are doing it over 4 years. And in fact, the 4-year education itself is a waste. The first year, they market it as, oh, you have the flexibility to check out various classes. You can move from history to political science to mathematics to astronomy. Bunkum. Yeah. Yes, you can do it. But the main reason they do it is they have 1 more year of people paying for infrastructure. The UK, on the other hand, 3 years. Oxford, Cambridge are producing excellent candidates with 3 years. They don't care where you stay. In America, it's mandatory to stay on campus. UK doesn't mandate that. Why is it mandatory? They say, oh, it creates that fraternity and brotherhood. Nothing. It pays, and you have to eat in the dining hall. There's no, because again, it pays for the infrastructure, right? These are all money-making things. You have to understand, in the US, it's a business. UK doesn't mandate that. I'm not even taking an Indian example.
My son went to Australia. There also it wasn't mandatory.
Yeah, America mandates this. Yeah, and then they'll give you some high and mighty excuse, right? That this is, the fraternity of college experience and rite of passage, and so somebody else is paying. These kids are all there drinking, partying, going to gym, and working out and whatever else on somebody else's money, and all these things are coming to to a town near you. So this is what I mean. We have an uncanny knack of getting the worst from the West, right?
Worst from the West and exporting our best.
Yeah.
So that's very well put, Vijayaji. It was wonderful talking to you, and
Thank you.
I think mm, these are some new perspectives, a completely new vista that you are giving to this whole thing, and coming from your own very rich and very different experience. I think this is greatly valid. I don't know whether you contributed to the formulation of the national education policy,
No
but
one.
certainly we can try and take your help in the implementation of the new education policy,
I
because in
actually wish
India,
that they would implement some of it, we'll be better off. If they don't bring in foreign universities, I think we'll be better off. And if they can just add 1 year of service, right? Either military or civil, with the country will be better. That's all you need to do. You don't even need to do much. The private
yeah,
sector
yeah.
will take care of a lot of it.
Having spent 35 years in bureaucracy, I know that the policy and implementation gulf in India is always very large. So let's hope for the best.
Pray for that.
So thank you very much, Vijayaji. Thank you for joining us here in Jaipur Dialogues, and best of luck from us.
Thank you.
And yes, and we end this broadcast. Please stay on after the broadcast.
Thank you.